can start.
We can start? Okay,
Yeah,
okay, okay. So the slide is seen?
yes, yes.
Good, good, good. So I just want to put this as a quick, recap of what we did last time. If you remember, we said that if we want to file a patent in any other country, then we have first filed a patent in India. And when we file that particular patent first time in India, that's called the priority date. Then from that particular date on which we have filed the patent for the first time in India, and if that is the priority date, then from that priority date, within 12 months, either we file our application in all other countries abroad that we want to file under what is called as the Paris Convention, or we don't file our patent in other countries within these 12 months, but we file a PCT application. And as soon as we file a PCT application, the window for the 12 months of filing our patent application in other countries opens up to something like 30 months. So which means that from the priority date, 30 months from my priority date, I can file my patent in other countries around the world if within 12 months I filed a PCT application. Then I get advantage of the 30 months. I don't get advantage of the 30 months, if I have not filed a PCT application. So it all depends on the strategy. So we also said that once the PCT application is made, then within 4 months of filing the PCT application, the International Search Authority in the World Intellectual Property Organization gives us a search report. From that search report, it is an international search of literature, and it tells you from there that whether your invention is possibly novel, whether it possibly has an inventive step. It gives you an indication, and therefore based on that, you can either change your patent application slightly with your claims and then file the application in other countries, or it depends on what you want to do. So that was broadly what we did last time. Any questions any one of you want to raise at this stage on this? Otherwise, we'll proceed. So kindly tell me yes or no. Anyone? Hello? Kindly
Hello.
just tell me, should I proceed? If you say yes,
So-
I will just proceed.
So my question is, can for the same invention, can we file different patents? So that patents which are slightly different according to the country's needs.
Depending on when you say slightly different, and what slightly is a very dubious word. So when
Yes.
you come, what is your inventive step? So depending on what that invention is, you can file a different patent in the other country, but depending on that slight means what? That slight is a big, how big is slight is a question that we need to look into in detail.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so good. So we'll now proceed along the lines that we have said, and then we went through a detailed set of questions as to when we want to file our patent application in other countries as well. Then we should ask several questions regarding our invention itself, and we can ask, like for example, if I want to file a patent application somewhere, we must ask the question, how strong will be my patent? Can somebody knock it out in an opposition? Can it knock it out in a course of law? Can I enforce it? So there are all these type of questions that come about, and we need to ask these questions about our own invention and do an analysis and evaluation as to how strong is our invention, how strong will be our patent. Because if our patent is weak and not well written and with very strong claims, then people will copy me and I'll not be able to do anything. So it will depend very strongly simply getting a patent is not good enough. How strong or how good, is the patent? So what should be our strategy for enforcement? If somebody opposes, how do I defend my patent? So these are the various type of questions we must ask ourselves before we file a patent application. Okay, so that is it. And then a very important part is, okay, I file the patent. Now, will I be able to commercialize my invention? If I can't commercialize my invention, then what was the use of filing the patent? Unless that particular patent which I filed was of some very, very important strategic significance. That if it did not have strategic significance, and if I can't commercialize it, or it is not commercializable, then what's the point filing a patent? So these are the type of questions that we need to ask ourselves before we file a patent application. And then, of course, you must understand that filing a patent application, preparing a patent application needs a lot of time. There's a lot of expenses that go about into doing all this. So we need to evaluate the work we do to evaluate whether it is worth filing a patent or it's not worth filing a patent. It is not like a publication, just publish it or something and one more publication. No. In case of patent, we must evaluate the strength of the type of invention that we have done, the strength of the invention, and that if we write a patent, how strong will be that particular patent, right? So that is something that we need to ask ourselves continuously before we go and file. Similarly, let's assume I got a patent and I thought I'd get a strong patent. Let's assume I got a strong patent. Now the question comes in that how long? Because I told you that simply getting a patent granted every year I have to pay a renewal fee. Now, if every year I have to pay a renewal fee, now question is how long should I go on keeping my patent valid, and how many times should I go on paying my renewal fee? So the technology life cycle, the product life cycle, the process life cycle, all these are important considerations that we need to look at before we take a call. Before we take a call that yes, I have an invention, I want to file a patent, and these are the type of benefits that I will get from the patent that I'm going to file. Any questions at this stage? Please feel free to ask. I will wait for a few seconds at this stage. So kindly ask any type of question that you may like to ask at this stage. I will wait for a few seconds. Kindly look at these the two slides which I put forward and just raise any question that you may like to raise. And if you don't need to raise a question, please tell me so that I can go forward. Any questions? Hello.
Proceed, sir.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Proceed, sir. You
Repeat.
proceed, sir.
Repeat it. Oh, proceed. Okay, we will proceed. We will proceed. So now, as far as we are concerned, so question comes in that when I have filed a patent, and let's assume for a moment that I get a patent. So we realized earlier, we had said, what is a patent? A patent is, a right given to us by the government to do what? To stop others from making, using, selling, vending that particular invention without my consent. So if somebody wants to use my patented invention, they must come to me and take permission to use it. I can stop others. Question comes in, can I use it? Can I go and commercialize it? Question, there is a point. And if the subject matter of my patent is something that needs regulatory clearances, like if I have a food product, then I will need a FSI clearance. If it's a drug or a pharmaceutical, then it will need the DCGI clearance, right? If it is, if it is related to an automobile, then it will need the clearance on safety and other things. So those are the types. So even if I have a patent, I can't just go to the market straight. I need to get all those clearances, and only then I can go into the market. That's the first point. use of IPR by the proprietor in case, and if I've gone through the entire safety, the entire safety protocol, and if I get a certification from the safety authority, of the country, then I can take the product to the market. I can manufacture it, I can create the process, I can sell it, I can do everything. That's one option which I have. What is the second option I have? I don't manufacture, I give a license to somebody. So I give the permission to somebody else to manufacture my patented product. So I give a permission. And when I give permission to somebody, that permission is called a license. And when I give a license, I continue to own the patent, but I give somebody else a permission to manufacture the product out there. So I give a license. So he manufactures the product under a license from me for my patent. That's the second part. Or I may manufacture it and I may give a license to somebody to sell it. So I may permit somebody to sell my product, which I make, right? And I allow that person to sell it. So I manufacture the product, but I give a license to somebody to sell it, right? That's the other part. Second thing which I can do, I can sell my patent itself and, let somebody else do the manufacture, let somebody else do everything. I just sell my patent, transfer the rights to whoever it is, and get some money out of it and say done. It's like buying a house and selling a house. I just sell the house. I don't rent the house. I sell it, right? So that is the third part. I can sell the IPR. I can assign and transfer the rights to somebody else, and I forget about it. I say, okay, now it's your baby, and do it, and you give me some money, and that's it. But when then I don't own it anymore. So difference between licensing and assigning is that in a case of a license, you continue to be the owner. You only rent your right. In case of an assignment, you transfer the right. Okay? And when you transfer the right, your right is gone completely and you are no more the owner of that particular property or of that particular idea. So license is that one. Similarly, you have heard this word called joint venture, that I have a patent invention, you have a patent invention. We come together, we pool these two patents together, and we create a product which is based on yours and mine. And we create a joint venture between us, and we make it, we sell it, we do all sorts of things. Similarly, if you look at McDonald's, for example, or Pizza Hut, right? Now, if you look at McDonald's or Pizza Hut, that is called a franchisee system. There, what has happened? That in case of McDonald's, that M written this way and all other details. So interestingly, if you go to a McDonald's in any part of the world, all the McDonald's shops will look the same. The color combinations will be the same. The burgers which they make will be made with the same quality of meat. It may come from a different source, but they stick to certain quality standards which is set internally by them. So when you go to a McDonald's outfit, does that particular outlet belong to McDonald's? No. What McDonald's has done is rented out. So in a way, it is more than a license. McDonald's owns that M. McDonald's owns the entire know-how of making things. So they give you the recipe, they give you everything. And if you're a franchisee, then it is, the McDonald's forces you to follow their standards only, in which case you become a franchisee and you're not just a licensee. Have you understood the difference between a franchisee and a licensee? Anybody? Anybody wants to ask a question at this
Yes.
stage? Please. Any question? Have you understood the difference between a licensee and a franchisee? Licensee means someone who has taken the license from you, taken the permission from you to make it or sell it or to make and sell it. Right? That is a license. If franchisee is that I say, look, I want, then you tell, if you start a shop like this and you write McDonald M, then you have to write it in this size letter. All the people in your shop must put on the t-shirt of this type, must put a cap of this type, must put on shorts or trousers of this type. If there are girls, then the skirts will be of this type. You know, your um, ingredients of the food will meet all these qualities, etc. So a franchisee is a lot more exact out there. That is important. Similarly, suppose you have a patent and I have a patent, then I can allow you to use my patent and you allow me to use your patent. So what have we done? We have kept the rights to ourselves, but we have given each other permission. That so I give you a license, you give me a license to your thing, and when I give you a license, you give me a license. That's called a cross license. So I license to you, you license to me, and let us say both of us make the product based on these two patents, which 2 or 5 or 25 patents that we have cross licensed to each other, right? And similarly, suppose I find that in a country my product is not doing too well, and will I keep my patent live in that country? Possibly not, because that is a cost, and therefore I don't do that. I let the right lapse in certain countries out there. Or I can even donate my rights. So any questions? Because I've done a lot of concepts right away. So any questions at this stage, please feel free to ask. I will hold on for a few minutes. Please feel free to ask any question at this stage. Anybody? Is there any question in the chat box?
Hello.
Can somebody see the chat box and then tell me, are there any questions in the chat box? Then we'll answer those questions first before we go ahead.
Hello.
Yeah, please.
Is it
Please go
possible
ahead.
to give? Is it
Can you please
possible
speak a
to
bit
give?
loud?
Is it possible to give license to different parties?
Yes, I can. And that is called a non-exclusive license. So I give different parties licenses and I create different types of agreements with those different parties. Excellent question. So for the same patent or set of patents or set of designs or set of, copyright, etc., I can give many parties, right? I can give the permission to many parties. Therefore, I can license it to many parties, at the same time. Okay, and I can use that in different terms and conditions. So, which means that this is what is known as a non-exclusive license. But if I give it to only one party, that's called an exclusive license. Have I
Excuse me,
answered your question?
sir. What happens if there is a contradiction between these parties? Conflict of interest. What happens with the conflict of
So
interest?
if there is a conflict of interest, it's a very good question. That is the reason that before you go and give your license to these different parties, you do what is known as the due diligence. You have to take care and ensure that you're not getting into a situation of conflict of interest. So you have to take care, you have to do the due diligence, you have to ask each party different types of questions, and then you create these particular contracts. Clear? Therefore, like non-exclusive licenses, where you have to ask several questions, go through a very detailed process, and only then you can go ahead in non-exclusive licenses. Please feel free to ask any question further.
So I have one question here.
Yeah, please.
So can you please elaborate more on franchisee system for patents? Because initially we talked that patents are covering the inventions related to functionality. So
Yes.
the example you gave, the McDonald's, it was not very clear which part of it is invention related to functionality. Can you please
Very
elaborate
good
more on?
question. Very good question. Let's take the McDonald's example. Now, for example, we'll take McDonald's as a clear example. So now, let us say that McDonald's is making a burger. Okay. Now, how is the burger made? What is the material with which the burger is made? Anybody? 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 What is the material with which the burger is made?
Meat, I suppose.
Huh?
Meat, I suppose.
So, yeah. So, if you take, for example, suppose you are taking, let us say, flour or atta or maida to make that burger, right? If you are taking atta and making the burger, first of all, the functionality will be in choosing the right type of wheat with the right amount of gluten and other other characteristics. Number one. Then, how do you process that particular atta? Because depending on how you process that atta, the properties of the atta will change, right? Now, third, so therefore that is functionality. So McDonald's may have a patent of making the atta. Then from the atta, how much of water to put into it, etc. So when you need and make a dough, right? Now the nature of the dough will decide the quality of the burger. So there may be a process of making that, and that may be the functional part, which may be a patent. Then you go ahead and make the bread, right, for the burger, right? You make that part. So that can be all functional aspects, which are the patent part. Now, after you have done that, then the shape of the burger and the looks of the burger, how you decorate it, may be a part of a design registration. Okay, how that burger looks, the looks of the burger may become a design registration. So I have a patent for the functional part, I have a design part. And let's say that M written in that particular way is the trademark. So there's an M part, which is that part. So when you are taking a franchisee from McDonald's, you take a license to use the trademark, which is M. You take the license on each of the patents that are there for the process and the product. Okay, so you have taken a license for, and then when you make the particular product of that type, that becomes also a design registration. Okay, you put the steak and maybe 2 tomatoes on the top and make it look in a certain way. So that would become a design registration. Then when you are making, you're having your shop and you put those colored things, so that identifies that this is a McDonald's center. So you go into what is known as trade dress. So when you're becoming a franchisee, there's a whole bunch portfolio of intellectual property that you take and use all that to make your stuff. Have I made it clear? Any
Thank
other
you.
questions still remaining? So what is important is to analyze each and every aspect of what we are using. The intellectual property, the innovations come from there. So maybe you never thought that a burger which you eat every day has so much of technology in it. It's amazing, right? That burger which you eat has got so much of technology in it. Similarly, so McDonald's is a franchisee system, but somebody who wants to make the same burger but does not want to use that M and those way, but wants to use the burger, he wants to sell those burgers only, then he will not take a franchisee, he will take a license only and make his own outlet and make the same burger, but he has taken license from McDonald's to go through this particular process to make that wheat, do all that, make the bread in that particular way, put it all together. But then he's not a franchisee, but he's a licensee. Clear? Any questions at this stage? Please ask. Clear? So this is very important. And similarly, I told you earlier that all these intellectual property rights are territorial. So if somebody has got the right in India, which has been given to you by the government of India, that particular right is not valid in Nepal, is not valid in Bangladesh, it's not valid in Sri Lanka, it is not valid in Bhutan, it is not valid in Pakistan. Right? So if you want your right to be valid, then you will have to file those intellectual property rights in those countries and get your patent, design, copyright, trademark, all that granted in those countries. Only then you can exercise your right, not otherwise. Otherwise, you don't have a right in those countries. So simply filing a patent in India does not give you protection in anywhere else except India. Any questions? Please ask.
Sir, the person got license.
Sorry?
Another the person got license from one person.
Yeah.
He can sell to other person.
Sorry, tell that again, please.
If a person got a license from one person, then can he sell to other person?
Oh, very interesting. See, if I take a license, now let me give you the example. Let's assume we'll slightly move away. Let's assume that I have bought a flat in Ahmedabad. Now, let us say that I have bought the flat, so that flat, and I have registered it, so that flat belongs to me. You come to me to rent that particular flat. So I give you the flat on rent. Now, question which you're asking, can you give that flat on rent to anybody? Now, which means that you are sub-renting to somebody. All these, whether you can, whether you cannot, what you can, what you cannot, must be a part of an agreement between the owner and the person taking the license. All these are put in terms of legal conditions and everything, and only then you can or you cannot, depending on the conditions that were put in the contracts. Have I answered your question?
Thank you.
Okay. So you can see now, simply getting a patent or a design registration or a copyright or trademark and not understanding the overall implication and how to use it does not give you any value. So therefore, it's very important for us to understand that when we are doing our research, which part of the work that we are doing is, possibly the subject matter of a patent. Which part of the work that we are doing is a subject matter of a design? Which part of the work that we are doing is a subject matter of copyright? Which part of the work that we are doing is a subject matter for a trademark, etc., etc. So we need to analyze the work that we do, the type of, so therefore, if I'm doing an invention and I'm involved in an invention, then I'm looking at the functionality. I'm only looking at patent. But if I'm also looking at the looks of the product, where I'm discounting, I'm not bothered about the functional element, but I'm looking at it only in the looks of it, then I go into a design registration, right? So those are important aspects. So when we take our work, how we work these particular things, right? So if that is, now has the slide changed? Has the slide changed?
Yes, sir.
So let us look at very carefully, and this is a very loaded slide. So we will go slowly on this. So first, you have an idea. Concept is an idea, right? Now, when you have an idea, okay, my question to you is, how do you start working on that idea? We are now going through the research process. Okay. So how do you start working on that idea? You have an idea. What do you do? Anybody?
Implement and test, sir.
Sorry?
We will implement and test.
Yeah. So how do you do? What do you do?
The idea will do the experiment and test whether it is correct or not.
Correct. So that means, but will you do that right away? What you do, see this green part first under the concepts. What do you do? That you have an idea, you define the problem, correct? And once you define the problem, that problem is to be defined in the context. In the context of what is already known. Unless you're doing something an absolute breakthrough. Otherwise, there's a lot of literature. So you do a literature search, don't you? Now, in doing the literature search, you are generally looking at journals, books, and all those other things that you do as a search. But important part now, that if you do not do a search of the patent literature, if you don't do a search of the patent literature, and you're working in some of the very key areas in let's say looking at software, looking at energy, looking at biotechnology, looking at many of the other processes and products, then it is very likely that if you don't look at patent literature, then a number of products and processes, they don't get published in open in journals and books. They're only there in patent literature. So if you don't search patents, then you're working possibly only on 40 to 50% of the global knowledge, which means the chance of you repeating what is already known is almost 100%. So which means that from the time that I have an idea and I define the concept, I define my problem, unless I do a detailed literature search which includes patent literature, my search remains incomplete. And therefore, the type of solutions that I'm looking at possibly is going to be a repeat somewhere or the other, which I'm not aware of. So this is a dangerous situation. And mind you, in more than 90% of the cases in our universities, okay, and other institutions, our researchers hardly have been taught how to do patent search. They don't. So as a result, the work we do, and then it comes to a certain stage, and you want to commercialize it, then somebody else will do that particular search and tell you that, oh, this is there in that patent, and it is there in this patent and that. And you would not have realized, and when you're done your PhD, you would have probably had a problem in trying to get your thing, across. Yeah, you were asking a question. Please ask. Go ahead. Is somebody wanting to ask a question? So it's extremely important for us that right at the beginning, when we have our concept, when we have the idea, when we are defining the problem, then the literature search must involve patent literature as well. All the patent databases are freely available, and you can search the patent databases. And if you don't search the patent databases properly, you're probably repeating a large part of what is already known. Even worse, a large part of the work that not only is known, but also is patented or design registered or whatever copyrighted by somebody, and you are unknowingly doing it. And mind you, in law, something unknowingly is no pardon. That is the reason in places where I teach, in IIT Jodhpur and many other places, we have insisted that we train our PhD students and our researchers to do a patent search and use particular literature from time to time. And as you do literature search, as you understand that because people are filing patents continuously, people are doing developments continuously. So doing one search is not good enough. You probably have to do a search every week to see how current you are with the literature. And unless you do that out there, your first part, the green part which is there, okay, remains a weak point in your research. So that is something that we need to do very urgently. Let us say in HBNI, since you people are going to do your research, we must ensure that we do the literature search into the journals, books, etc., but we also do the patent search. Clear at this stage? Any questions? Okay, if you have any questions, please ask, because I'm trying to complete the research process today. Please go ahead. Any questions? Any
Hello.
doubts?
Sir, where can we
Yeah,
do
please
the
go ahead.
patent search?
Sorry?
Where can we do the patent search?
Yeah, so I would propose, your question is absolutely valid. There are patent databases which are known, and what we can do is, if Professor Nayak and others, and I'll write to Professor Nayak if he's not today in the session, that we will request that maybe we should have a couple of sessions where I show you how to do the search on patent literature. We can have a few sessions on that at an appropriate time, and I will request Professor Nayak. I'll send him a message that look, if we can have a couple of sessions for us to do a patent search. Because you can do the patent search country by country, you can go to the other databases, but that will need for me to explain to you how to do the patent search in comprehensively after you have defined the problem. Have I, though I've not solved your problem, but I've said that we need to do it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Good. So yeah, you were asking something. You were asking something. Please go ahead. Namita, were you asking something?
No, sir. No, sir.
Okay. Now, so it's very important for us that if we are weak at the very first stage of our research, then the research that we are doing is probably not going to be, for example, argument purpose. Suppose today you're working on stem cells. Today you're working on semiconductors. Today you're working on artificial intelligence. Today you're working on, some of these, working on, let us say, new and smart materials. Now, most of the literature in that is not there in journals and books. Most of that literature is in patent literature. So if you have not done patent literature search, you are probably not aware of what is happening in that particular field. And more importantly, what is already published and what is already patented, what is already owned. And so dangerously, you are getting into an area which you're into somewhere. Somebody may come and say, oh, you're actually copying what I've done. And you may say, I don't know. But well, I don't know is not the answer. That is that part. So which means right in the beginning, you have to prepare how you're going to strategize, how you're going to work, what is going to be the path that you will do, and all that depends on the literature search that you have done in the context of the problem that you're trying to solve. So that is that part. Then come to the next part. Now I have started my work and I'm doing my literature search continuously. Now while doing that, I realize that I've established my proof of concept, right? I've established my proof of concept. And having established my proof of concept, right, it's very likely that now I think that I must file a patent for myself, or I must file a design registration for myself, or I must file and take ownership of my copyright. So I do that. So then comes in, as we are doing the work, now I'm in the light blue color zone. As I'm doing the work, I'm now deciding, oh, this is the work I've done. I've established this proof of concept. This is what I've done. And therefore, at that stage, I decide to file patents. I don't file patents at the end of my work. I file patents as we are doing the work. Because only then you are going to be current in the whole situation. Otherwise, somebody else would have filed a patent and your work will then lose its novelty. Your work will not have an inventive step, etc., etc., etc. So this becomes very important. Then comes in the next part that you are doing, and if you think that somebody else is also doing similar work and they are filing patents, then you will have to collaborate with them. You may file joint patents with them. All these are a part of the strategy. So as you're doing your work, you consider all these points which are important and you work it through. So you decide, okay, onto it. The trade secret part I will come to separately. But there are certain, as you have understood, that if you have to file a patent, you have to get a design registration, you do a copyright, then you disclose what you have done. But do any one of you, have you heard about the term called know-how? Anybody has heard the term called know-how? Anybody? The word know-how.
Yes, sir.
Have you heard the term know-how?
Yes.
Yeah. So what is know-how? Know-how is something which you don't want to tell the others. You keep that to yourself. It remains as your trade secret. So you file patents on those aspects for which you disclose and claim. There are certain aspects where you don't want to disclose, and you keep that away from people as trade secret or know-how. So that is very important. So you can see that as you're doing your work, you are taking a call, that when will I file my patents? What will I keep as trade secret? What will I file as design registration, etc., etc., etc. It's a very dynamic process, right? Now, let us say I'm doing my work, and then I realize that at a certain stage of my work, I'm not going to take it and commercialize it. So what do? I probably find a partner and I transfer the entire my knowledge to that particular partner. So I do a transfer of technology and let those people do the next step, and I don't get involved. So I get involved into the part of developing the proof of concept. I don't go and set up a plant. I then tell the engineers what to do with it. The engineers go and set up the plant. They do the part. I only then give them and supply them the knowledge which I've developed, in a certain concept. That is how knowledge gets transmitted. That is how knowledge gets commercialized. That is how knowledge comes to use. And that is where scale up and all those particular issues become very important. Clear? So that is all there in the blue part, which I call as work in progress. Now, having done all this, I come to the output stage. And in the output stage, right, I then realize that I've filed certain patents, I've filed certain design registrations, I've got some copyright, etc., etc. And then I see how to put all that together in the form of a portfolio. And that portfolio becomes an important part for the organization and work out the entire commercialization strategies and whatnot. Now, in that commercialization strategies, I as a scientist don't get involved, but there should be a department or a team in the organization who are involved in doing this. So I transfer everything to them. They are trained to do the commercialization. They are trained to do the knowledge transfer. They are trained to do the technology transfer, etc., etc. And they do all those parts. So that is the next part. And then when it then goes to the market, very important part is 2, 3, 4 things. When it goes to the market, of course, the technology life cycle is important. So one has to keep constant, looking at what is the technology life cycle. Is the technology, is there a competing technology that's coming and overshooting my technology? In which case, what happens to my patent? That means I must have a further development and another patent to strengthen my previous patent so that somebody else does not overtake me in the marketplace. So we have to continuously work these things out. Similarly, if somebody is copying me in the marketplace, how will we find out? So there must be a mechanism by which you can know people find out if somebody is copying. In which case, you don't remain quiet. You take the person to the court in the court of law and settle your issues in the court of law. And that is where the policing becomes important. That is where enforcing your rights become important. That's where the entire commercialization process takes place. And throughout this process, because there is a continuous developmental work that is taking place, your documentation and patent search and literature search does not end. It continuously goes on. So that is how the research process takes place from concept to, let us say, to the market. Any questions at this stage? Because I've covered a lot of things out there in a very short time, and you may like to ask some questions at this stage. We have another 10 minutes, and I would like to spend those 10 minutes in answering certain questions. So please go ahead and ask questions. Anybody? I can carry on with the lecture, but would you like me to wait for you to ask me questions, or you want me to go ahead? Somebody will have to give me a signal. Can you give me a signal, please?
Please go ahead.
Okay, okay. So that you've now seen the entire process by which we do that. And therefore, I thought I would like to come, having looked at all this, let me just quickly, 1 minute. So let me just quickly, let me just go to one slide. Has the slide changed? Has the
Yes,
slide
sir.
changed?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So you're seeing that on one side I've kept the word patent. On the other side, I've kept the word trade secret. Now, in case of patent, we have to disclose. In case of trade secret, we do not disclose. We keep it as a secret. Right? How do we get ownership in a patent? Because the government has given a grant. The patent has got that invention. We filed a patent and we got a grant. And therefore, we got the right through a grant given by the government. In trade secret, how do you get the right? By keeping it a secret, because you have not told anybody. And therefore, you got to be very careful that your trade secret does not get leaked to anybody. Right? Now, the time for which a patent is valid is 20 years from the date of filing, provided you get the patent. In case of trade secret, the life is infinite in the sense that so long as it does not go to the public, that trade secret remains yours. But tomorrow, if somebody does the reverse engineering and works out, your trade secret is gone. Okay? So, for example, the formula of Coca-Cola is a trade secret. You have not told anybody. But can you do a reverse engineering? Can you do a whole bunch of analysis to find out the formula? Of course you can. Coca-Cola will not. That is the point. Similarly, in case of patent, you have to pay renewal fees every year. In case of trade secrets, once you have kept it as a secret and you're successful in keeping it as a secret, that remains with you. So long as somebody has not reverse engineered it lawfully, not stole it from you, but have, legally reverse engineered and found it out, till then the trade secret is yours. So there is no time limit in that sense. How do you enforce a patent? If you find that somebody is copying you and is falling within the claims of your patent, you take that person to the court. What happens in trade secret? In trade secret out there, if you think that somebody has stolen or used unlawful means, then only you can go to the court, not otherwise. So these are some of the things where we are looking at trade secrets and patent, and we are comparing one with the other. Any questions at this stage? Obviously, now you're seeing that when we talk about intellectual property rights, right, that whole issue of intellectual property rights is such a subject which had all sorts of dimensions into it, and therefore coming towards the end of the of this particular session, I will quickly, as a summary, I will quickly
Sir,
and 1 minute. I will
Sir?
go. Yeah, one minute. 1 minute. 1 minute. Yeah. No, please go ahead. Please
yeah,
ask.
I have a question, sir. What is non-disclosure agreement and how it works?
Good. See, in the word you have used, non-disclosure agreement. Now, so first part, there is a disclosure, there is a non-disclosure. So non-disclosure means you and I, when we sign an agreement, a non-disclosure agreement, in that agreement, we decide between us that, look, I'm giving you certain information which is not available in the public domain. I'm giving you some information and you will not disclose that information to anybody. So you and I get into a non-disclosure agreement. That you and I agree that whatever I'm telling you and whatever you're telling me, right? We will sign a non-disclosure agreement that what you're telling me, I will not tell anybody. And what I'm telling you, you will not tell anybody. That is a non-disclosure agreement. And then this is a legal document. We put down all the terms and conditions as to under what circumstances you can or you cannot tell what you are going to do. And that is a non-disclosure agreement. Have I answered your question?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So that's a non-disclosure agreement. So as a quick summary, that you as a creative person, you have done some creations. And what happens? The functional aspects of those creations, which are inventions, those inventions you will protect using this legal tool called patents. The functional aspects, the inventions are protected by patents. If there are certain looks of that particular product, the looks of that product will be protected, which is the non-functional part, will be protected by design registration. Certain elements of that particular product, okay, which you have not disclosed to anybody, you will keep that as your trade secret. Certain parts where you have either created a logo or a sign to represent that when you look at that particular product, and that identifies you as the creator of that, you as the manufacturer of that, you as the owner of that. So that association of the product or process is a trademark. So we have done that. And then you may prepare manuals, you may prepare very beautiful presentations on your product and processes. Those, like this particular slide, is protected as a copyright by me, right? So this creative slide is protected as a copyright by copyright. And I've not done geographical indications with you in this particular course, but I've restricted myself to patents, trade secret, trademark, copyright, and design registration. So when you take all these together, you then decide how you want to, how you want, how you want to take advantage of this combined protection. So, for example, I'll just end my lecture by giving you an example. And next time you see this particular product, you examine it carefully. How many of you have eaten a Lay's potato chips? Anybody?
Yes.
Yeah. So now if you take a Lay's, next time you open a packet of Lay's, look at the potato chips. How do they look like? Anybody? How does the Lay's potato chip look like?
White
They are
color.
wavy.
Sorry?
They have waves.
Yeah,
structure.
they're wavy, correct? Now that wavy part of the Lay's chips is protected as a design registration. So nobody else can actually make another potato chip which will look like that particular wavy stuff. That is protected by design registration. Now, the interesting part, if you take the Lay's chips, you will not find brown spots in it. And you know, what did they find to start with? And those brown spots come when you fry the potato, those brown spots come because certain amount of sugars are there and certain amount of other compounds are there in the potato which give those brown spots. So they created a new variety of potato with very controlled chemical composition. So the potatoes which they use are these varieties which they have protected. So nobody else can grow those varieties, of potatoes. So they've, made those. So the potato they use is very unique. So that is protected as a new plant variety. Then the way they cut, the way they fry, all those are patents. They're patented all that. So nobody can do the frying that way. Nobody can use. So if you want to do, of that type, you have to go and take a license. Lay's is a trademark, and the way they've got their packet, the layout, okay, is very unique to them, and that's their copyright. You can see that from this very innocent-looking potato chips, how much of intellectual property rights has actually gone into it. So you have to analyze your things from that standpoint. So any questions? We have come to the end of the session. So I will 1 minute. I will stop sharing. Yeah. Any questions at this stage or any comments or anything in the lectures that we have done? So do you want to make any comments or anything that you want to ask? Or if you want a further session on how to do patent search, how to do all these things, do ask for it, and we can always have a session separately for some of those things. So I will stop at this stage, keeping to the time. So I'll leave it to you to ask me other questions, and if you don't have any questions, we will log out. So please, let me know what we should do.
Sir, hello.
Go ahead, please go ahead.
Yeah, sir, the last slide which you were showing,
Yeah.
it was copyright by you. So what
Yes.
implication it has? Suppose I want to use it or I.
Yeah. So you must know what I have done. There are two parts to the story. So if you want to use that slide, in principle, you must come to me and take my permission. Then I want to use this slide, and I use. And I will probably say, yes, go ahead and use it. That's number one. So that is my copyright, and I'm giving you, so I'm licensing you my copyright to use my slide. That's point number one. Point number two, when I'm giving these courses, right, normally, right in the beginning of my core, these slides, there is, what is known as, for example, under copyright itself, there is what is known as Creative Commons. And in Creative Commons, many a times in all my slides, I have given them out in the public domain as Creative Commons. So there by putting some things, some qualification in my very first slide and the cover slide. I give permission to everybody that if they want to use my slides for purpose of education, for purpose of propagation, for presentations, non-commercial purposes, they can use it. Clear?
Yes, sir. Sir, and we definitely require one separate session for that patent search thing.
Yeah. So my proposal would be kindly put that request to Professor Naik, and we will discuss it, and we'll have a separate, maybe a couple of sessions on how you should do patent search. So please send a message to Professor Naik that we would like to have, couple of sessions, and during your course, we will see how to manage that. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. So we log out if there are no other questions. And thank you very much. I hope I was able to raise your curiosity on this particular subject, and also to present to you that how important this subject is for every one of you. So thank you very much for your patience, and as and when you want any other intervention, we certainly will help you out. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you
you, sir.
very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank